Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel on episode 4. In this video I'll be talking about my 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro and how it performs 2 years later. At the time of release, this was Apple's most powerful MacBook. It was a real step up from its predecessor, the 15-inch MacBook Pro. The butterfly keyboard issues were resolved and other hardware was also upgraded, including the battery life, seriously impressive graphics cards, and the way it dissipates heat, allowing for the processor to run faster and more predictably. If you enjoy watching my tech videos and want to see more, don't forget to drop a subscribe below. Anyways, let's get into it. It's always nice lifting the lid on an Apple box, whether that's an iPhone or a Mac. Upon opening the box, you are presented with the MacBook itself to lift out. Then underneath, the USB-C power cable and the 96-watt power adapter, which is a higher wattage than its predecessor. Also included is the obligatory packet with the Getting Started instructions, and of course, a pair of Apple stickers. So that's what you would have got if you bought this MacBook Pro. Apple products have always had impressive battery life, and this MacBook is no different. It comes with an integrated 100-watt-hour lithium polymer battery, which Apple claims will last up to 11 hours. I have to say, over the last 2 years, I haven't noticed any battery degradation. On trips away, it will last for hours and hours, whether that's streaming movies or video editing. I have not once been in a situation where I've needed to charge and I wasn't able to. Some great improvements to battery life was Mac OS Big Sur, which actually learns the routine of my MacBook and would delay charging past 80% in certain situations. Considering most of the time a MacBook remains plugged in, the battery life is still exceptional. This MacBook Pro was the most powerful Apple had made. If I'd opted to splash out and go for the maxed out option, I would have got an 8-core Intel Core processor with a 64GB RAM, but my 16-inch MacBook Pro was the base model and it came with a 2.6 GHz 6-core Intel Core i7 processor, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, an AMD Radeon Pro Ultra HD graphics, and a 500GB of flash storage. Benchmarking this MacBook Pro against my old 2012 Mac Mini, it absolutely wiped the floor, which doesn't surprise me since it's 8 years newer and more up to date. Day-to-day use of this MacBook has been a dream. It happily exports videos in 1080p and 4K format whilst using other apps like Chrome and Photoshop. In real-world scenario, it would take around 5 to 10 minutes to export a 4K res video whilst also using Photoshop simultaneously. I'd also like to point out it's impressively quiet. The thermal design was significantly improved from the 15-inch previous generation. I've yet to notice any reduction in CPU performance when exporting 4K and running multiple apps. The built-in speakers of the 16-inch MacBook Pro are phenomenal. There are a total of 6 speakers with force feedback enabled woofers to produce quality sound output. The results are incredibly crisp for high notes, but also the bass sound doesn't create unwanted distortion. Where these speakers really stand out is whilst watching movies and listening to music. The surround sound and virtual effects is awesome. They really trick you into thinking the speakers are in each side of the room. Whilst I do use a soundbar 95% of the time for editing videos and listening to music, for the other 5% I use my laptop speakers. If you're on the road a lot and need that portability, you definitely won't need to buy any additional speakers to plug in, especially with the lack of ports available on this MacBook. There was huge drama over Apple's decision to implement the butterfly keys into MacBook, which a lot of people didn't like. Thankfully, the 2019 MacBook has the more traditional keyboard partnered with a touch bar and the formidable escape button situated next to it. The traditional scissor switches were also found in the popular Magic Keyboard that are reliable and a great keyboard. With over 2 years of typing on this keyboard, I have to say it has been insane. The key depth and resistance is spot on. move on to the touch bar. In all honesty, I rarely use the touch bar, and to me personally, it feels a bit like a gimmick. There's an unparalleled sense of pressing a physical key versus a touch bar on a laptop that to me just feels unnatural. Let me know what you think in the comments and whether you use your touch bar and how often. The 16-inch 60Hz IPS display comes in at 3072 by 1920 pixels with an aspect ratio of 16:10. The panel covers a P3 colour gamut and has 500 nit peak brightness. Thanks to the excellent colours, great brightness and solid viewing angles, it's the best display over 12 inches that I currently own. It's a fair increase from its predecessor, the 15-inch model. I've been using my MacBook for around 2 years now, editing images using Final Cut Pro and any other documents I need to create. Needless to say, it has been awesome. The crystal clear picture has been spot on. Although more recently, I've been using my MacBook as more of a desktop with a separate display plugged in. The ports. With this 2019 MacBook Pro, you get 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports and a headphone jack port. When I purchased this MacBook, for some reason Apple were eradicating ports left, right and centre. This is one negative point about this MacBook. Unless all of your devices are using USB-C, then you'll need a multi-port adapter, especially if you're constantly using an SD card. Luckily, Apple have been listening to its users and actually brought back more ports in the newer models. This MacBook Pro is a no-drama, absolute beast on my desk. It will take whatever I can throw at it. Even now, 3 years on, it will give newer machines a run for their money. In the second-hand market, these fetch anywhere between £1,200 and £1,600, which is incredible value for money. So if you're looking for a second-hand MacBook Pro, this 16-inch model is not one to be shied away from. With the overall performance output, battery life, size and weight, this MacBook Pro really hits the spot. If you like this review and want to see more, please give me a follow, like and subscribe to my videos. Also, don't forget to catch me on Instagram at AlexTechWorks. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.